Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special fifth friend episode on Her Time. Today, we want to welcome all our viewers and thank you for taking the time out to watch this episode. We also want to thank our special guest, who is very dear to my heart, my beautiful and wonderful sister, Elizabeth Gonzalez, and we call her Lisa. Today, we are going to be talking about the unexpected moments in our lives. We've all encountered those moments, and they have taken us on a journey of questioning, doubting, confronting those fears. And so today, my sister is going to be sharing with us her unexpected moment in her own life and how she handled it and is still handling it. So, sister, before we begin, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hi, ladies. I'm so excited to be here. I finally get to share some time with you all. I enjoy watching Her Time. My name is Elizabeth Gonzalez, as my sister said. I'm the youngest of seven, even though my sister jokes all the time that I'm the oldest. She's really the oldest. I am been married for 10 years to my husband, Cirillo. We are a blended family. I have three adult children, Jerry, Stephanie, and Jocelyn. And then we have our wonderful, beautiful boy, Ezekiel, who's going to be 9 years old in a couple of weeks. I belong to New Life Church, Covenant Church, and I am the women's director, Radiant Women's Director there. I've been doing that for about a year and a half, but I've always been very involved in the church. I'm a PK kid, or we're PK kids, right? So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about myself.
Yeah. So you said that you are a blended family. And with Zeke, tell us a little bit about that pregnancy and how you found out about it.
So we had been maybe about a year and some change married. There was a lot of unexpected things happening, a lot of change that was happening. As I said, we're a blended family. So my daughter, Jocelyn, was headed to her first year of college. And with that came a lot of decisions and a lot of change for me, because my daughter, Jocelyn, was is my best friend. I mean, we were always together. I was a young mom at 19. And so the change was having a husband now and two other kids come into, I say, my apartment, right? They were coming into my space. And so I said, hold on, what's happening here? There was a lot going on, a lot of, at the time they were teenagers. So now I have two new teenagers in my home. And so I was going through a lot, being newly married and then having kids. And so we got married in 2012. In 2013, I'm with my girlfriend at work and she says, hey, I want to go take a pregnancy test. And I said, why? And she's like, because I think I'm pregnant. She goes, we should do it together. And I said, do it together? And I said, no, I'm not pregnant. I'm like, I'm not going to do a test with you. She goes, yeah, come on, let's go buy it. So fine, I go with her. We go to Walgreens, we buy the test. We go back to work. She's like, well, I'm going to go take it. I said, okay, well, you go take it. I didn't take it. And as I was sitting down going through my work, I paused and I said, man, I have been late. So, and so I called her and I said, where's the other test? And she goes, yes, you're going to take it. And I said, I don't think I'm pregnant, but yeah, I'm going to take it. So I go into the restroom, I do my thing, and all of a sudden I see these two blue lines, pop up, and it's like, pregnant. And I said, wait a minute, hold on, let me check. Is this right? And so I take a picture of the stick and I send it to my husband, and he calls me right away. He's like, what does this mean? And I said, well, it means that we're pregnant. And he's like, no. He's like, you need to go get a better test. You didn't spend a lot of money on that one. Go get one where the word pops out and then it shows, pregnant or non-pregnant. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, okay, I'll go after work. I'll do it. So I go after work. I buy 2 extra ones because I'm like, let me make sure we get this right. I take one that night, and the word pregnant comes out, and I send it to him again. I said, I'm still pregnant. And he's like, no,
Oh
you need to go. You need to go and call the doctor and make an appointment. He's like, because I don't, believe it. Long story short, I go to the doctor. I find out I'm 8 weeks pregnant, and he was freaking out because he's like, oh my gosh, we are Sarah and Abraham. And I said, Sarah and Abraham, I'm 37, he's 44. And he's like, we're too old to be starting over. And I said, well, this is what the Lord, has blessed us with. And so that was an unexpected pregnancy. We were never like planning it. It just, if it happened, it happened. And we were okay with it. It was not something that, we didn't want in a pregnancy. We just said, if the Lord wills it, then, amen. And so we began this journey with my pregnancy. And so we shared it with the kids, and they were shocked, and they were like, I think they didn't know how to feel with it. My older son was like, great, now I have to move out, because there's no more room for me. I have to leave. And we're like, no, you don't have to leave. Don't worry. Like, we're going to work it out. So Ezekiel was supposed to be due in January. And in December, I want to say November, the doctor had said, or the midwife had said, I think you're almost ready. Like, he's already down. And I said, already? And she's like, yeah. And so I was like, well, okay. And so in December, I was at work and I began to bleed, and I was like, something didn't feel right. And so I went to the doctor. I went home. We went to the doctor. She's like, come in. And she's like, you're not dilated much. She's like, but we need to keep you just in case. So they keep me for the weekend. And it was a Thursday. And then I remember on a Saturday, she's like, we're going to go send you just to go through some testing, just to see if everything's okay. Why is this happening? I say, okay. So the nurse comes, she wheels me up to the room, and the room is kind of dark. I was going to get an ultrasound, and my husband's sitting there, and we're just thinking, okay, it's just a regular ultrasound, no big deal. And as she starts doing the measurements and she starts looking, and I see her face begin to change, and she's looking a little more serious, and I'm like, okay, what's happening? And she's like, okay, I'm gonna be right back. And I was just like, okay. And so she exits the room. In about 5 minutes, the doctor comes in. He's like, I'm a genetics doctor. We were looking at Ezekiel's measurements, and he has holes in his heart, and he has an obstruction in his stomach. We're not sure what it is. He has a short right femur. And so as he's beginning to say all these things, my mind is flooding, like, what is happening? I don't understand. Like, I almost felt like Charlie Brown hearing wah, 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 like that. It was just this kind of moment that I was just like, what is happening in here? And he's like, so there's a possibility that he might have Down syndrome. And I was like, what? And he's like, that he'll have Down syndrome. He's like, any questions? And I was just like, no. And he was like, okay, I'll give you some time. And he walks out the room. And I was like shocked. My husband wasn't saying anything, and I just began to cry. And I'm looking at this screen and I'm saying, God, why? I said, people are going to make fun of him. He's not going to be accepted. He's not going to be included. What are we going to do? What does this mean? Why did this happen? The questions began to rise, and I just didn't understand, like, why was this happening to me? A lot of the times they say it's because you're older. When you're older and you're having a child, these things could happen, and so all these thoughts are running through my mind. I'm in tears. My husband is silent. He's not saying anything to me. The nurse comes back in and she says, okay, we're going to roll you back up to the room. And I said, okay, they roll us back up to the room, and I'm just quiet on the bed, and my husband sits at the edge of the bed. And my husband's, sometimes he's a man of few words. Like, he doesn't say much, but when he does say something, like, I knew it was God, because as he sat at the edge of the bed, he was like, listen, babe, at the end of the day, this is our son. And no matter what it is, we're going to raise him the best way that we can. And I just stood there and I cried, because I I felt like God telling me, I got you. And I just was like, Lord, forgive me for doubting you, forgive me for, for thinking these things, because even though you serve the Lord for so many years, you're involved and God, you go through these moments of doubt and you just don't understand why a particular situation is happening at the time. And though you have faith and you believe, you ask God, what's happening? And so as I cried and we hugged and we prayed, and um, our midwife comes in the room. And so I'm just kind of sitting there. I was still dealing with anger. I was angry. I was mad. I was still trying to deal with my emotions. I understood what my husband said, but I was angry. I was angry too at the doctor and the way he presented it. Like there was no comfort. There was no, it's going to be okay. Like, it was nothing like that. And so as the midwife comes in, she says, so how did it go? And I said, what do you mean, how did it go? Because I was so mad. And like, what do you mean, how did it go? She's like, well, like, what did they say? And I said, well, you know what it says. You know what the folder says. You've read it. And she said, okay. And she sits down and I'm thinking, why is this lady sitting down? Like, get out of my room. Like, why are you here? And so she sits down and she looks at me and she's like, so how do you feel? How am I supposed to feel? I told her, like, what am I supposed to feel? And then so she was just like, she's like, I want to hear from you. I don't care what the doctor said. I don't care what, the medical wording or your file says. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is, how do you feel? And so then I began to share with what my husband has shared. And, I cried. My husband was in tears. And she said, wow, I've never met such resilient parents ever before. Ezekiel has the best mom and dad. And she began to cry. And she's like, I see, that this is going to be something beautiful. And I really hope that I'm here to deliver your baby. And she's like, can I give you a hug? And I said, yes. And we hugged, we embraced each other. And she's like, everything's going to be okay. She's like, everything's going to be okay. So it was just the comfort that I felt like I needed from the doctor. She gave me that. And I felt like it was almost God just reassuring me that it was going to be okay. And so after that they sent me home, but then on Sunday I come back because I was having now a lot of contractions. And so we get back to the hospital and she's there. She's the one there to deliver my baby. And so she's like, do you want an epidural? And I was like, yes, I need the epidural. Give me the epidural.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Mind you, when I had my daughter at 19, okay, 19, it was a whole different, feeling. I was a lot younger and this pain, I was kicking my husband out of the room. I was like, get out. I don't want you here. So she was like, let me be here. She was like, we gave the epidural, not even like 45 minutes after that, Ezekiel just kind of, he came out and he was a little bitty 4 pounds, 6 ounces. He was so tiny. He had hair like an old man. Like he just didn't have top hair. He had hair all right here. And I was as she gave him to me, I just kind of like stared at him, and I felt like it was almost that moment was robbed from me because I was so stuck on what the doctor had told me. I felt like I couldn't really just embrace that my child was born. And she's like, look at him. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm looking at him. And I didn't know, I couldn't feel because I was just like, I know this is my son. And she's like, let's take a picture, get the camera. She's like trying to, really get the moment, and we're just, I think at that point, we were just trying to process everything. And she's like, I don't see it. She goes, but we're going to run blood tests. We're going to, do a lot of things. We're going to make sure everything's okay. And so we stood in the hospital for a month. And so in that month in the NICU, on the second day, he went through a surgery because obstruction that the doctor had talked about. It was his small and large intestine never attached. And so his pancreas was in the way. And so they had to make sure that they attached it. And the doctor did a great job. And she said, well, now we're just waiting for poop. We're just waiting for poop. And one of the sisters in the church had texted me at that moment, just out of nowhere. She's like, what do you need me to pray for? And I said, well, oddly, I need you to pray for poop. She's like, poop. And I said, poop. And she's like, oh, okay, amen, we're gonna pay for poop. Right. Amen. So so that journey, it began to of a place of unknown. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how my life was going to change.
I mean, you didn't even have a whole lot of, advance notice. They told you like on Friday, right? And then you had the baby on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of think that that's good, because if it was me, I'd be like researching and going all crazy, looking up things. Did it
help? I think the night he was born, I was on my phone researching things because we were staying in the hospital. And so I was like, I started trying to look up information. I just, it's just trying to piece those things together, because it was, I knew of kids that had Down syndrome, right? But I was around it at church. In my old church, there was a young boy that had Down syndrome. So I was around it, but not unless you're really like in it, will what it's like. And I remember that I was almost trying to pray Down syndrome away. I was just like, God, why does this happen? Take this away. You do anything, God. You can do anything, And I remember going to church and pastor was preaching, and he said, you can't be naive to what God has given you. And when he said that, it just, as we got in the car, I was crying to my husband. I said, I am being naive. I am thinking that I could pray this thing away and, it's just going to go away. And I said, it's not. So it's either we're going to accept this and we're going to go on the high road, or we're not, and we're going to be woe is me. And I said, and I'm not the type of person to go with woe is me. I said, I have to rise above this, whatever this is, and I'm sure my husband was going through his own journey, but these were the moments that I know that I was struggling with and what I was going through with this unexpected, journey of a pregnancy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm wondering, Lisa, because you talked about, being angry, and even in the throes of understanding, because people were really, the doctors were sharing things, the midwife is sharing information with you, you're looking up things on, on Google, you're doing all of that and trying to understand this. But I'm really wondering how trying to gain that understanding impacts a marriage relationship. Like, how did you and Cirillo handle your doubts and your questions? I know part of that journey, of course, is your relationship with God. But then are you looking at each other like, hey, wait a minute, tell me what's up in the lineage in your family or in the lineage in your family, and asking each other those questions. Did you go through that in your marriage?
Yeah, I think probably about 2-3 years after we're learning about this and just trying to go through understanding what it is. I know that I went through a moment like I blamed him, and I said, this is probably his fault, because his family, I thought about our daughter has nerve damage, and so I thought, oh my God, like, why would I think something like that? Like, it's those spare those moments where I was just angry, trying to figure out how did this happen? My daughter's fine, like, what's going on? Like, it was just all these questions. And then I remember him telling me, like, I feel like this is my fault. I feel like, because of my family and what we've gone through genetically, his side of the family, he blamed himself. And at that point, I said, no, it's not your fault. It's not my fault. This is what God has just allowed us to have. And so we went to a moment of just forgiveness and just praying together and being like restoring each other, in that moment, because we knew that it was not his fault nor my fault. It was just what we believe that this is what God has blessed us with. And it was hard for a few years for the kids too, because they were trying to understand this, as a family, they were trying to understand this. And how do we deal with him? How do we talk about him? How do we say things? But my daughter, Stephanie, she told me that in some way she felt connected, to him because, of her having her disability with her legs, she felt like I'm always going to be there for you. I'm never going to let you go through something that I went through, because I want you to know that I got you. And their relationship is so beautiful because they have such a bond that it's undescribable, the bond that them two have. And so I'm blessed with my kids that spoil him, and watch him. A lot of people say, oh, you have stand-in babysitters. And I'm like, no, they're not stand-in babysitters, being that they're adults. But it was a journey for us to get through those moments they were hard moments for us.
Would you say that when you had that conversation that was so revelatory with your husband, would you say that it got the load was maybe a little easier because now you knew what he was thinking and he knew what you were thinking? Did it make it easier?
Yeah, I felt like we kind of hit a place where we understood each other, and that like we were both going to support each other, in whatever way that we could. Like when he see that I was struggling, he would step in. And when I see he was struggling, he would step in. And we've kind of created this balance even now, like with our relationship, where I'm like, okay, Tag, you're it. Like you deal with him now, because I can't, I want to walk away,
Right.
So we've kind of built this great relationship when it comes to like raising him and dealing with him, because he's going through a lot, so it's a lot of emotions and feelings. So yeah, I really did.
Good.
And I'm sorry, I could stand as a witness because I've seen that with interaction between my sister and Cirillo, and how, if there's a moment where she's just upset or whatever, then he comes in and he jumps right in and takes care of him. So it's been really beautiful to see that collaboration among them too, in really raising Ezekiel. And so, yeah.
And I think a lot of those moments, like, for me, he's had moments with the family where he has a meltdown. Like as toddlers, they have meltdowns. And so, but his meltdown is a little extra. And so, like, when he has a meltdown, it almost, at first when it happened, it made me feel embarrassed. It made me feel like, oh my God, like, why is he being this way? Because Ezekiel kind of like zones out, he goes into a place of zoning out, and we're trying to find ways to calm him down. And so my family's kind of like looking like, what is happening here? And me and Cirillo are just calmly trying to be like, okay, trying to, be calm and try to, but inside I'm like, oh my God, like, why is this, it's happening, but we're trying to just maneuver the situation that we best can because there's people around, and he's had many meltdowns that my family has to witness. And so, at first I would apologize, and my sister's like, stop, you don't have to apologize. Like, it's okay. Like, he's gonna, have these moments. Because I feel like as a family, we're all, even with my siblings, they are also learning about this, and my parents, how to deal with it. It's been great to see the support with my family and my church friends, when it comes to the love that my church family has also given Ezekiel. They treat him like, just like any little boy. They see him, they give him high fives. They, even when he's mad, and they're like, okay, high five, and they just keep going. So it takes a village really to raise my son. Yeah.
Lisa, I wanted to say that I like the way you said, I think you said it twice already, about that when you said, this is what the Lord has blessed us with. Many people may, hear people say, this is the hand that I've been dealt, or this is my burden to carry, or this is my whatever. But the way you said this is the way, this is the blessing that the Lord has given us. I love the way you said that. I have a question, and I wanted to know, how do you feel when people ask you questions? Are there any questions that are off limits? Is there has there ever been a time where somebody has asked like, oh, well, why is he acting this way, or why, or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to Ezekiel because I want people to understand. I want people to know. I want to bring knowledge to or awareness to Down syndrome, because the more they know, the more they'll understand when they see that all kids with special needs, Down syndrome, they just want to feel included. They just want to feel part of. And so sometimes, they don't know how to say things. If they say, well, how does he, like, you could tell they're treading lightly with the question. And I'm like, what, do you want to know how he acts? Or what, I kind of just like,
spit it out. Spit it out.
Like, go ahead and just tell me. And they're like, well, I don't, what level is he? Or like I said, my son is 8, but right now mentally he's probably like at a 4 or 5-year-old stage. I said, he's still learning, he's still growing. And so just began to tell them, what Down syndrome is, what it consists of. It's a delay, mental delay. They have a mental delay. And so everything for them, it just takes an extra time, I remember that at work, a lady said, oh yeah, I have a friend that, her kids are slow and they don't, I'm like, they're what? And she's like, they're slow. And I said, don't ever use that word. Slow or retarded. Those are just words those are trigger words for parents with special needs, because you don't say that your child is slow. You don't say, and we've done it for years, the retarded word, or the, which we say the R word, those are just things that you just don't say, you don't say that. And, I had to kind of take a step back and think, the lady I was speaking to, she was a lot older than me, and the terminology for her, because of back then, that was, I guess, the term they used. And I don't think she meant it like in a bad way, but my first reaction was like, what do you mean by that? He's not slow. He's just taking his time. Yeah. He's just taking his time. That's all. And so I just kind of had to explain to her, and she appreciated, she appreciated that I explained that to her. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't know, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, it's okay. I said, I'd rather explain it, so that you understand, so yeah.
Yeah. So what does life look like for Lisa now?
Well, we are half empty nesters. My son doesn't live here anymore. My 2 daughters got married. One of my daughters just moved to Arizona. So that was another unexpected change for my family. And she's doing great things out there in Arizona. But again, she's always been one that I was close to. And so that was hard for us, another transition for us. But right now, it's just us and my husband and I and Ezekiel. And, I say at one point he's going to get married and live downstairs with me. We're just together forever.
Good.
So, but things are good. It's been a ongoing learning and journey. And so, we're just learning everything we can. I've taken classes. I've kind of just trying to give myself more knowledge into knowing everything of what it is with special needs or Down syndrome for myself, just so that I can better equip my son for his education as well, trying to get him the education he needs.
And speaking about education, how was your experience, with Zeke starting school? What did you go through in terms of, the process of, having him start school?
So school education was it's very touchy because it's when I got him into pre-K, it was one of those, oh my God, I'm letting him go. Who's going to take care of him? What's going to happen? And so I thank God that every grade that he's been in, me and my husband have always known somebody that's working in the school. And so it's kind of helped us along the way, because they poured into us and guided us when it comes to therapy and just learning things about him. So God has always allowed a way for us when it comes to school. We've had challenges in it, but through those challenges, we've learned, and I just reached out to people that have resources and that can help me, and guide me, and teachers, and looking at IEPs. And so that's still, I think it's going to be a forever learning curve for us, but it gets better with time. And so it's gotten a lot better, and he's progressed a lot since now he's in 3rd grade. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Well, we're gonna wrap it up, but thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I want to just encourage our viewers, how do we handle those unexpected moments when it hits our own lives, and moments like maybe a miscarriage or infertility, financial difficulties, identity issues, infidelity, addictions, terminal illness, or a certain sickness. How do we handle those moments? And I know that in our own experiences, those unexpected moments, we've had to turn to God, and we've had to trust God. We've had to surrender and lay everything at the foot of the cross, even when we didn't understand. And we are here, sharing this story with you all, but we've encountered our own moments, and it's never easy dealing with those difficult situations in our own lives. But God demonstrates his love through us. He strengthens us if we just trust and believe him in the process, even when we just don't understand. He desires for us to just lay it at the cross, believe and trust that he's walking us through this journey. And we don't have all the answers, and we don't understand all things and why things happen the way they do. But we do know that we serve an awesome, powerful God who loves us, who cares for us, and he desires, the one thing is to have and be in relationship with us, even in those unexpected moments. And these moments allow us to grow in our faith, grow in our character, grow as individuals. And it is an opportunity for us to help others who may be going through the unexpected. And I just want to end with this verse. There's 2 verses I want to share with you all. Psalms 55:22 says, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." And Isaiah 41:10 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So I just want to encourage you, ladies or viewers, if you're going through an unexpected moment, trust the God who loves you, who strengthens you, and who's right by your side. So thank you for watching. Thank you, sister. Thank you, Lisa, for just sharing your awesome story.
Yes.
We love you. And we pray that this episode will bless your heart as it has blessed ours. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.